Hey there, Elizabeth. Well, President Biden, he's making his way back to the White House earlier than expected after the weekend at Camp David that you mentioned, reassured by members of the Biden family to stay in this race. This is as his top campaign advisors are working the phones tonight, calling top donors to reassure them that Biden can beat Trump and can do this for another 4 years. We're told some donors have privately urged Biden to drop out of the race, and it comes as there are ongoing discussions in Washington circles as to what happens next. One source telling me there is pressure building on former Presidents Clinton and Obama to persuade Biden to drop out of the race, and some are pointing to what they say are two very different candidates between 2020 and 2024. Take a listen.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan.
Making sure that we continue to strengthen our health care system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
We're told there is a lot of frustration from members of the Biden family directed at the campaign staff who helped prep Biden. One source summarizing the family's feelings as, quote, they did him a disservice. The president has said not to share those sentiments, and a senior Biden advisor denies that the family is upset. A spokesman for the Biden campaign is saying, quote, the aides who prepped the president have been with him for years, often decades, seeing him through victories and challenges. He maintains strong confidence in them. So we'll wait to hear what the president has to say here shortly on the immunity ruling from the Supreme Court today, just moments from now. Elizabeth?
All right. Kellie, thank you so much. If we can bring in our panel with the very latest. Chris, if I could start with you. We have, I'm not sure, Chris, okay. All right, Chris, the reason I want to get to you first is because I've been reading headlines since Thursday about the tear between what we see is the Democratic Party's wants and needs and then the Biden family. What is your take?
The Democratic Party is not a cult. It should not be rallying around one individual person. It should be doing what's in the best interest of the country and what's in the best interest of the party. And I think that Joe Biden is probably not going to win this election. And I think his performance on Thursday night was a disaster. And I appreciate him coming to the podium today and speaking. But if he's not going to stand there for a half an hour and take questions afterwards, I don't know what we're doing here. He needs to show the American people that he has that ability still. They are very concerned about what they saw the other night. It is not about the base of the Democratic Party. They're going to be with him no matter what. It is about the 6 to 8% of voters in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, New Mexico that are going to determine the next president of the United States. And they were concerned about Joe Biden's age before the debate, and the debate made those concerns grow. All this talk about advisors prepping him, I don't believe any of that. Joe Biden's been in high elective office for over 50 years. He knows exactly what he's doing. He was not able to do it. It was political malpractice for them to do this debate, knowing he was in that condition. And now that they've done it, they've got to face the consequences. There are going to be some very difficult conversations in the next 2 weeks with the president. And I think ultimately he will not run.
Chris, I'm a little bit surprised, actually, that this is your stance. And when you say that there are the diehards who are sticking with him, I mean, I would argue that that's fracturing, right? When you look at the 72% of those who feel as if he has mentally declined. And if you look at a state like New Hampshire, we're looking at some polling where, just about a couple months ago, I mean, he's dropped 10 points. We're looking at a 42% approval rating for him, a 44% for former President Donald Trump. Karen, I think that we are starting to see a strong base slip away.
I don't think there's any. First of all, let me go back and just disagree with something Chris said, which is that I don't think Joe Biden is going to lose the election in November. I'm confident that he will win the election in November. And there doesn't seem to be as much evidence as people want to point to about this base slippage. I mean, if you look at the motivation and enthusiasm of the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party being Democratic voters across the country. The campaign had its best hour of fundraising immediately following the debate. In the time from the debate through Friday night, it had its best fundraising period ever. It had its biggest weekend of ground mobilization over the weekend. And if anybody was at that rally in North Carolina, they can tell you that the energy and enthusiasm was there. I think the president had, one bad performance.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.